This video is sponsored by Lost in Cult, the publisher behind the Design Works series of books, which are deep dives into the creation, artwork, and world design of your favorite video games. Their current project is a collaboration with Frictional Games to bring you an in-depth exploration of all the games in the Amnesia series, The Dark Descent, A Machine for Pigs, Rebirth, and The Bunker. With exclusive interviews with the developers behind all the games, beautifully printed concept art and design documents, and more than 200 pages, exploring the birth of one of horror gaming's most iconic series. As is tradition with Lost in Cult, they are currently running an exclusive pre-order campaign for the limited deluxe edition of their Amnesia Design Works, available until January 9th, 2026. This special edition comes in a beautiful hardback, with a black slipcase with foil detailing, black-edged pages, and a charcoal cover unique to this edition. You'll also get 4 black and white sketch postcards, 4 full-color art postcards, showcase concept art from each game in the series, and 6 replica in-game sketches from The Bunker. There are 4 embossed foil bookmarks, each representing a different title in the series, an embroidered logo patch, and a concept art print from A Machine for Pigs. If you're a die-hard Amnesia fan, you have to get your hands on this edition, as there's really nothing else like it out there. If you're watching this before January 9th, head to lostincult.co.uk to order your copy, or click the link in the description and use my code to get 5% off anything in the Lost in Cult store. As a die-hard horror game fan, and a big proponent of preserving gaming history, nothing could fit my channel better than this collab, and this book is something I genuinely enjoy having on my bookshelf. Along with their books on Alan Wake, Mouthwashing, Mundan. If you're a gaming nerd, you have to check out Lost in Cult, and doing so right now is a big help to my channel. It's not often I get the chance to help support cool projects in the horror game space, and it'd be great to see this one really succeed. So I hope you'll follow my example and buy yourself or a friend a copy of Amnesia Design Works this holiday season. The story of Silent Hill F is a wedding. Though this fact is obscured by layers of fog, for a Japanese audience it's likely far more obvious from the start, given the themes presented throughout the game, the symbols, the clothing, the puzzles, and of course, the story revelations building in the background, all point out the truth, that our protagonist Hinako Shimizu is trapped, fighting against her own wishes and desires to escape or to perform a ceremony that will imprison her for life. The traditions we'll explore follow a certain type of Japanese wedding, one that looks ancient but only really became popular in the last century. The Shinto ceremony, a blend of older native trends and newer foreign ones, nearly all of which appear in the world of Silent Hill F. This type of Shinto ceremony is called the Shinzen Keikon, or marriage before the kami. It isn't as old as it seems. The style was popularized by a royal wedding in the 1900s and has since fallen out of favor as Western-style church ceremonies have become more popular. The story of Silent Hill F is set in the 1960s, and the marriage it depicts follows traditions of that era. Back then, love matches were less common in Japan than they are today, and it wasn't strange for the fathers of the bride and groom to be the ones to agree to the wedding. It was rarely a match made for the woman's sake. It wasn't uncommon for a bride to be sold off for the benefit of the family, perhaps to pay a debt, or to unite powerful, wealthy families, or in some way to benefit the larger group rather than the bride herself. Texts from the past reflect this lack of concern for the bride. Sometimes the bride runs away from home. The bridegroom sends for the go-between to tell him his trouble. The official seeks out the black-eyed little rebel in her father's house and inquires into the grievances which led her to run away. It is possibly a serious case, though it is not uncommon for a bride to run away 3 or 4 times before she is finally settled in her husband's home. Usually, the traditional promise of the wife to love, honor, and obey. This would not be of concern to the average Japanese. No matter what is said during the marriage ceremony, there is not the slightest doubt that the Japanese wife will obey her husband. Older texts describing the Japanese ideals of a bride are ghastly to read. In the past, women were expected to shave their eyebrows and blacken their teeth after marriage. This goes back to ancient traditions associated with nobility, though at least one Japanese writer speculated on a possible reason for continuing the tradition that had nothing to do with class, but the belief that making the woman ugly would prevent any other man from having affection for her. It was a woman's most sacred filial duty to be married, and the best a woman could hope to be was a good bride. From a young age, the ideals of womanhood are ingrained in these young women, particularly the belief of complete submission and obedience to the spouse and his family. When you are married, you are legally my daughter no longer, so give the same perfect obedience to your father-in-law and mother-in-law as you have given to your father and mother. When you are married, you have no other lord than your husband. Be humble, be polite. Perfect obedience to the husband is a noble virtue for the wife. Even where there is injustice on the husband's part, do not be angry. Don't talk much. Get up early, stay up late at night, and do not take a nap. Don't drink much wine. Don't go into a crowded place until you are 50 years old. Do not associate with young men, even if they are relatives. This complete submission to the husband is reflected in the traditional garb of the bride, the shiromuku, which literally translated means white, pure innocence. In Japan, white represents purity, but it is also the color of death. Tradition says the white of the bride's gown represents her death in her parents' family and her rebirth as a member of her husband's family. When a girl becomes a bride and leaves her father's home, she is already dead to her father and mother, and lives now only for her husband, and she is going to die in her husband's home. The traditional headgear of a bride is the suno kakushi, literally translated to horn hiding. The idea being that a bride is hiding demon horns, representing jealousy and selfishness. By hiding them, she is resolving to become the ideal bride, who is selfless and lacks any resentment. The groom's traditional outfit is the monsuki, or mon carrying. The mon or kamon is the clan crest, the symbols associated with the samurai and noble families of old. These kamon would be worn on the outer layers of the kimono, representing the man's family and the clan the woman would be marrying into. This outfit tended to be in dark colors, blacks and grays, perhaps to complement the white of the bride. Many of the traditions associated with Shinto weddings are pulled from samurai traditions. In the old days, a samurai bride would receive a kaken, or short knife, as a gift from her husband. She was expected to carry it for self-defense, or if the need for ritual suicide should occur. A third possible reason was divorce. It was expected that she would end her own life instead of leaving the family. After marriage, she would also wield the naginata, a pole arm used by samurai women to defend the stronghold while the men were away. In Japan, tradition associates the wedding season with autumn, particularly October and November. The heat of the summer is past, the harvest is over, and the cool of winter is yet to come. In October and November, the autumn colors tinge the mountain foliage, and newlyweds can enjoy them from the balconies of inns that perch on the banks of sparkling streams. Along with the appropriate season, there are also appropriate and inappropriate days for the wedding, which come from the tradition of good and bad luck days, or the roki. It is a cycle of 6 days associated with various forms of luck, which determine what kind of events should or shouldn't be hosted on such a day. Some particularly unlucky wedding days include May 6th, October 3rd, and December 30th. The ceremony would traditionally occur at the home of the groom. The bride would be escorted to her new home on the day of the ceremony, and after would not be allowed to leave to visit her parents for at least a week. In the modern era, the Shinto variety of wedding tends to occur on the grounds of a shrine. The actual ceremony would be small, limited to immediate family, as well as a miko, or shrine priestess, who might perform a dance or otherwise assist with the ritual, as well as a kannushi, or Shinto priest, who would perform a purification ritual as well as lead the wedding ceremony, calling upon the kami to witness the marriage. The central event is the ritual exchange of sake. In the most traditional form, the bride and groom drink sake from 3 cups 3 different times, a tradition called san-san kudo, or 3-3-9 times. The ritual would also involve traditional Shinto musical elements such as the taiko drum and the flute. In the modern age, most couples have also begun to exchange rings, which is done after the vows and the exchange of sake toward the end of the ritual. The decor of the event would be centered around symbols of longevity to reflect the desire for a successful, long-lasting marriage. Many traditional symbols would decorate the family's home, where the marriage sometimes took place, and where the reception would occur afterward. The first is the pine tree, which has long been a symbol of prosperity. They're often planted around shrines as protection against negative energy, as it's believed they have the ability to push back evil spirits. In-game, they appear as a kasamatsu, a style of art that figuratively represents the pine. Like pine, bamboo also represents long life. It is a powerful and adaptable tool with multiple everyday uses for the Japanese household, making it a symbol of both strength and flexibility. Plum, or ume, appear in Japanese designs as small flowers resembling cherry or sakura petals, but depicted with rounder edges. The flowers are pink or white and bloom at the new year, often accompanied by snow. They represent the coming spring, strength and good health, and the ability to overcome. They are also imagined as being good defense against evil demons. These 3 together are known as the 3 friends of winter, shochikubai. These are plants which continue to flourish in the coldest months of the year, making them symbols of longevity and survival. They are heavily associated with the new year and with weddings, as it is tradition to use them as decor for the ceremony. As symbols of prosperity, they represent the wish for a happy, long-lasting marriage. These decorations are often associated with a symbolic representation of the married couple, called the takasago, an old man and old woman who represent the marriage ideal, usually presented as a pair of dolls used as decor on the wedding day. Some say this tradition originally represented the mythic first couple, Izanagi and Izanami. Instead of attending the actual wedding, most of the guests would be invited to the reception afterward, where the traditional gift to give is an envelope of money. These envelopes would be wrapped in mizuhiki, a form of decorative string. These strings can be many colors and tied in many fashions, each with their own symbolic meaning. For weddings, the colors should be gold and red or gold and silver, with a tight knot implying the long-lasting nature of the couple's marriage. For formal events like weddings, these gifts might be placed on a raised stand, which would be carried into the event. Some gifts involved in the ceremony are not for the couple, but for the gods. In the old days, presenting a full-bodied fish to the kami was a major part of Shinto rituals on special occasions, which eventually became a part of certain wedding traditions. The fish, with both its head and tail, was called the okashira and was felt to be an auspicious symbol. At the reception, or gohiro, the guests must follow strict rules of protocol involving their behavior, the way they enter the room, the gifts they bring, and the clothes they wear. Women in particular are expected to wear dark-colored kimonos, with black backgrounds, decorated with patterns in gold and silver. In the Nihon Shoki, one of Japan's most ancient texts, there is mention of a good omen appearing in the form of a white fox. Another ancient text, the Yamashiro no Kuni Fudoki, mentions the fox as a messenger of Inari, the deity of rice, farming, wealth, and prosperity. Going back more than 1,000 years, the fox appears associated with divinity, with power, and yes, with trouble. The fox appears in folklore as a blessing and a curse, a creature of unpredictable moods and devastating powers. It is a trickster, an illusion weaver, a seducer of men who can transform into a human being, usually a woman. But it is also the divine messenger of a beloved goddess, a figure of devotion and respect associated with a myriad of religions: Buddhism, Shintoism, Onmyoto, and even Hindu traditions. Scholars theorize that the stories of the fox in Japan originated in China, pulling on the ancient traditions of yin and yang. In this worldview, all things are made of opposing energies which influence one another. Both foxes and women were considered beings of yin, or dark energy, and stories arose in which fox spirits would transform themselves into women in order to seduce men, so they could feed on their yang energy. This is the oldest theme of the fox myth, and one of the most common in folktales. The fox needs male energy to grow to become a more powerful spirit, and must obtain it through intercourse. So the fox becomes a bride, seducing and marrying innocent, ignorant men who typically are set free by coincidence or an accident that reveals the bride's true nature. In the reign of Emperor Kinmei, a man from Ono set out on horseback in search of a good wife. In a field, he came across a pretty and responsive girl. He winked at her and asked, "Where are you going, miss? Will you be my wife?" And when she agreed, he took her to house and married her. Before long, she became pregnant and gave birth to a boy. In the 2nd or 3rd month, the dog, seeing her, ran after her barking and almost bit her. Startled and terrified, she suddenly changed into a wild fox and jumped up on top of the hedge. Having seen this, the man said, "Since a child was born between us, I cannot forget you. Please, come away and sleep with me." She acted in accordance with her husband's words and came and slept with him. For this reason, she was named Kitsune, meaning come and sleep. The story supposedly explains the origin of the word referring to fox spirits, kitsune, associating the very name of the creature with the idea of sleeping with a spouse. It also represents a rather peaceful end to the narrative. In most of these tales, the fox must leave once it is discovered, sometimes taking its children with it. In others, the fox is driven away, though it is almost never killed, being far too fast and tricky to be defeated. In fact, it was believed the fox was so fast it could travel across the nation with a mere thought, appearing and disappearing at will. Many fox myths involve the ways in which a fox spirit somehow tricks or deceives a human, and either gets away with it or is eventually caught. Sometimes the story depicts the victim as a fool or arrogant man who deserves their comeuppance. Others show them as innocent victims of a wily, vile fox spirit. But while these pranks can be incredibly nasty, they are rarely very dangerous or harmful long-term, save for those stories that involve draining humans dry. In Japanese literature, the fox is as standard an element as is the fairy in our lore. In comic, serious, didactic, amorous, and moral literature, the fox appears in every guise and every condition in life. Now wielding baleful power, now playing harmless practical jokes, and rarely exerting a beneficent influence. Sometimes, the fox is a story element used to test the spirit of a mortal protagonist, particularly in Buddhist moral tales, which might depict a humble monk overcoming the temptations of the mortal world by defeating a fox spirit. Other stories show the opposite, a proud monk succumbing to temptation and being humiliated by the spirit's trick. Fox spirits were also known for possessing humans, driving them to madness. Many stories associate the strange, inhuman behavior of a person with the fox spirit, who is usually angered by an insult or a slight from the human. This person would suffer permanent harm even if they were set free. The possession would eat away at their energy, taking years off their life. During said possession, the person would begin to act strangely, forgetful, distracted and distant from reality. Why is the fox considered so dark, so dangerous? Some theories connect the association to its nature as a burrowing animal. Creatures associated with the underground and the earth are chthonian. They're beings of death. And as a nocturnal creature, the fox is further associated with nighttime and the dangers of darkness. Many stories of the fox involve traveling the countryside at night and mistaking a fellow traveler as a person when they were really a fox in disguise. Because of this association with night, darkness, and the underground, the fox has become a symbol of the dead, often being depicted as a returned spirit, often looking for vengeance. They are uncanny creatures. They are also creatures of destruction because of their association with fire, possibly due to the red color of a fox's coat. It was believed a fox could strike the earth with their tail to spark flame, and mysterious unexplained lights were called foxfire or kitsunebi. These fires, seen in the distance in a dark forest at night, were believed to resemble a wedding procession, so the phenomenon became known as the Fox's Wedding, referring to the strange floating lights in the mountain. The term was also used to refer to sun showers or sudden unexpected rainfall, the idea being that you'd been tricked into believing the weather would be good. Since a fox wedding is a deception in which the groom marries a false bride, in colloquial terms, it becomes a shorthand for trick or deceit. How does one tell a real person from a fox? There are a few ways. Some stories show the fox unable to fully transform, having to hide its tail. If the tail is seen, it reveals the truth. Others have the shadow or reflection revealing its true form, or else a barking dog might scare it off. You might be able to play a trick on it back. Win in a verbal contest if the fox is pretending to be a scholar or a monk, but typically it is some element of their physical body which gives them away. Some stranger traditions involve slicking your eyebrows with saliva, or you can turn around, bend over, and look at the fox from between your legs. You might eat a fox's tongue to protect you from their magic, or you could procure a fried rat, the apparent favorite treat of the fox, which will entice the spirit so much they'll forget about their pranks entirely. Foxes are not purely harmful. There are many stories involving their blessings as well as their curses. In particular, there are the stories of fox families, people believed to have spiritual ties or a bond with the foxes. These families are able to make the foxes do their bidding. As spirits of wealth, they benefit the family financially, likely by stealing the goods of others to enrich their humans. They may curse the family's enemies, causing others to fall to ruin while their clan rises above. Families believed to have these fox spirits on their side are afforded respect, out of fear they might turn their dark magics against their neighbors. One of the most famous stories of the kitsune in Japanese myth is Kuzunoha, the noblewoman who was truly a fox in disguise. Stories say she was the mother of Abe no Seimei, the famous historical figure of ancient Japan, often portrayed as the most powerful sorcerer of his age. This power, myth says, stemmed from his mother. When Seimei was young, his mother's true nature was revealed and she was forced to leave, despite the deep love shared between her and her husband. Her name means leaves of arrowroot, or kuzu, the Japanese name for kudzu. The goddess associated with the fox is Inari, the rice goddess, who has become intertwined with the fox over the centuries. Originally depicted as a man with a beard riding a white fox, Inari has become a female goddess associated with food as well as wealth, since rice has been the measure of wealth and power in Japan in the past. This association makes her fox the symbol of wealth and power as well. Art sometimes depicts these foxes carrying keys in their mouths, representing the lock of a storehouse containing treasures. Another associated symbol is the pearl, also held in their mouth, said by some myths to be the source of their foxfire magic. What's notable about the fox is how much it is associated with the feminine. Stories of its transformations into humans sometimes involve a male figure, but it is nearly always as a mere passerby or a priest or monk. It's far more common for a woman or a bride to be the figure the fox takes in myth. Because of this, the fox itself is thought of as a female animal in the Japanese mind. Yet our fox spirit is a man and is the central figure in a story about the horrors of marriage in a time and place where women were treated as belongings, as things to be bartered and sold. There's something fascinating in these layers, where a mythos centered on the idea of a dangerous female spirit sucking men dry has been transformed into a seductive man sucking away the soul and independence of his partner. All the while, the town is overgrown with plant life, like kudzu gone wild in the American South, completely overwhelming the native life until nothing else can grow, sucking life energy from the world. Silent Hill F takes an ancient story and turns it on its head to tell an incredibly dark, heartbreaking story that shows just how little things have changed, from the ancient world of demonized female spirits to the near modern day of a fox's wedding.